everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Green by Jay Lake. So Green follows a young girl who she believes around the age of 4 or 5. She is bought from her father from a very impoverished village, and she is like by a man, and she's brought across the storm sea to a city called Copper Downs, and there she is taught by many other women called they're just called like mistresses, and then mistress something or other. She's taught etiquette of all kinds. I mean, how to eat different types of food, how to prepare food, how to make and prevent like being poisoned. She's taught fashion, what's fashionable, what's not, different types of stitching. She's taught very much in order to become a courtesan, pretty much, or mistress of the Undying Duke. So throughout all this time, she is not given a name. She does not remember the name that she was given as an infant. And everyone just calls her girl. And so for up until she's about 11 or 12, I believe it's 12, she is basically being taught how to be a mistress, to be a courtesan to the Duke. Anyway, so she is also on the sly. She is also being taught self-defense. And pretty much how to run, basically, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, so very shortly after she gets her period, she is considered mature enough for the Undying Duke to come see her. And I find some fault in that, but I'll talk about that later. Anyway, so she gets her period and everyone decides that she's ready. So the Undying Duke comes, and he takes her clothes off, like just rips her clothes off, and he's like, okay, your name is Emerald. That's the name you're gonna go by. And she's kind of in this haze of sorts. And then once he leaves, she's like, nope, I don't think so. And then the plot just escalates from there. She finds herself being thrust to the front lines, basically being the spearhead to this massive plot to kill the Undying Duke. And that's pretty much the premise of the whole book. The Duke is considered to be, he's immortal. He's considered to be somewhat like a god to the people of Copper Downs. So under his rule, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, they have trade. Poverty happens pretty much wherever you go. So it's not perfect, no. But they're not fighting wars. They have trade. They have commerce, things like that. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, except that in these other courts, like Green was trained in the court of the pomegranate tree, and there are other courts throughout Copper Downs where other young women are being trained to be his or others, like mistresses. So there's some problems with that, that I found, but that's pretty much it. Anyway, the majority of characters in this book were female. There were a lot of females in this book, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I found them to be very fleshed out, very 3D. They all have their own wants and needs, and they do pretty much all get along. I did notice as I was reading, there's a lot of female-female relationships. Nothing's wrong with that. I do have a little bit of a problem how much romance was going on. Like, pretty much every female was doing each other. And I mean, I'm not against that thing, that sort of relationship. I'm not. I mean, it's basic human nature to want to be sexual in general. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But the fact that everyone was doing each other, and not necessarily like orgy style or anything, but I was just like, Okay, you know, okay, whatever. Go on, experiment, you know, you're young. But I just kind of find it a bit odd that there's so much going on in the book. But it's not like, it's not, we aren't giving a crap ton of scenes. They're pretty much just like secondhand knowledge, basically just sprinkled in. So very many people have found fault with the way that J. Lake has written Green, but to me, like, she came off very torn. She was, from a very, very young age, she was brought from everything that she had grown up until that point with. She was brought across this massive sea, and she spent, up until the time she was like 12, she spent in this small little courtyard. She was being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So she wasn't given very much freedom, you know? And so when she finally did kind of get that freedom, it kind of went a little bit crazy, in which I totally understand, you know? Imagine being locked up, well, not necessarily locked up, but pretty much, yeah, imprisoned for that long and then given some freedom. I believe that you would make mistakes too. I would. You know, she was just trying to find herself. Also, there was a little bit of inconsistencies with her character. Green very much wanted to abolish child slavery. She did. But she wasn't necessarily given the tools to implement that. She had no idea how to do it, which I understand. I kind of get, you know, but I did find it kind of odd how she was like, no, I don't want anything to do with child slavery, and then she would use a child as like a sacrifice of sorts. So I did find kind of find fault with that. As for the other characters, I found them pretty unique. Can't really find any faults. I'm still not quite sure why she was basically chosen to kill the Undying Duke. Other than the whole mistress thing, like, it wasn't really explained, because like we later find out that, I mean, he wasn't like necessarily a perfect ruler, but like I said earlier, like they don't have wars, they have good commerce and things like that. So I'm not quite sure why, and it wasn't really explained a whole bunch. So the world building was pretty good. I really was thinking, some of the descriptions that were given made me think of like China and London and India. So some pretty, I don't know how you would say it, like modern, I guess, descriptions were given. But they were still pretty unique. I didn't have a problem with them. They were really interesting. Like, I could picture them very well. Alright, that was my spoiler-free review of Green by J. Lake. Maybe consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. My Goodreads and Twitter accounts will be linked in the description box below in case you want to follow me on any other social media for bookish, random, lifey type things. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.